Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, until very recently, I've never really regretted not owning a certain game console, which I clearly didn't own in the past. The only one I could mildly say I wish I'd given more of a chance was the original Sony PSP, but even then, it was only for the few select titles like Ridge Racer and Metal Gear and stuff like that, and I still managed to play, a few games on that system because I worked in a video game shop called Game Station around the time, plus, one of my friends had it as well, and we just played it back and forth. But aside from that, I either owned all the consoles I ever truly wanted, or as always, when you were younger, a close friend or friends owned the other systems, and you still managed to play them almost as much as they were yours, or you just managed to play a good chunk of games on those systems, to get a good impression of what those systems were. In regards to the systems I'd never owned back in the day, the ones I kind of was interested in. I personally never owned a Sega Game Gear, a Sega 32X, a Mega CD, or a Neo Geo CD. But I had this very one close friend of mine whose parents were loaded with cash, and he owned all the other Sega systems up to that point. So whenever I went around his house, I'd jump on those bad boys and play some good stuff, with fond memories of games like Star Wars Arcade and Virtual Racing, etc. On the 32X, and games like Sylphid and Sewer Shark, etc. on the Mega CD. In regards to his Game Gear, we were both friends through gymnastics, and like my Game Boy, he brought his Game Gear everywhere, and I played a ton of his Game Gear whilst he blasted on my Game Boy. But that's how I got to play many Sega Game Gear games, like the Sonic games, plus a wealth of other exclusive titles on that system, and those are just great times. In regards to the Neo Geo, I didn't know anyone who actually owned one of those systems back then, but I was still very, fully aware of it because I read it in magazines and stuff like that. But with the Neo Geo, as we know, they were arcade games that Neo Geo made, and many of those titles came to other platforms either at the time or a little bit later. I still effectively grew up with playing Neo Geo games in either the arcades or at home. I remember first playing Samurai Showdown on an arcade machine on a ferry boat going to France for the gymnastics competition. I was crazy young back then, maybe 11 or 12 or something. But I've also played other games like Metal Slug, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, like I said, Samurai Showdown, World Heroes, I love those games. Super Sidekicks, awesome. King of Monsters, awesome. Soccer Brawl, shooters like Last Resort, amongst a ton of others. To me, all Stone Cold classic games and series I played back then, and still play some of them to this day, whether I rebought them or own them. Neo Geo games were effectively everywhere, so once again, I never felt like I completely missed out on not owning a Neo Geo console. And as for the Atari Jaguar, I just never wanted it. It just never appealed to me. Besides these machines, I personally owned, Atari 2600 Junior, Commodore 64, the NES, the Game Boy, Master System, Mega Drive, SNES, so forth. So I managed to get a good taste of what every major platform had at that time. And another close friend also had a Spectrum and an Amiga, which I still play quite a bit as well. But like I said, at the start of the video, until recently, I've never really truly regretted not owning a system from back then. Until recently, my 40th birthday, a group of very close friends all chipped in together and bought me some epic birthday loot, and amongst that loot was a PC Engine Core Graphics Mini. Now, I wasn't completely unaware of TurboGrafx or PC Engine back in the day, as it was still in my magazines that I read. But at the same time, I never paid too much attention to it, and never saw one in the wild, or I never played it. So much of what it was and its library just completely went past me. But holy shit balls! After playing this thing nearly every week since my birthday, which was in August 2021. I can honestly hand on heart say that not only do I feel like I missed out, but I also feel that this console would have been right up my alley in regards to its library and a style of games, and probably would have been one of my favorite machines ever. You know, hell, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite machines ever, and that's purely of the small sample of games that I've played on this mini system. So for those who do not know much about the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine, I'll try to make this as quick and simple as possible. You know, although you hear those two names here, they are essentially the same system. It was named the PC Engine in Japan, and when it came to the West, it was named the TurboGrafx 16 in the US. Because hey, marketing in the 16-bit wars, right? Although technically it actually had an 8-bit CPU. I'm learning all this stuff now because I just love this system so much. But hey, those were the days, right, when people and marketing done this stuff. And in the UK and Europe, it was just named the TurboGrafx, without the number 16. It was built by two companies who partnered up together, NEC Technologies, and another name you should all know, which is Hudson Soft. That's right, the creators of Bomberman, and we'll get into that company in a minute. In Japan, the PC Engine sold crazy well, even outselling the NES at one point, and also at one point becoming the SNES's main rival in Japan. But it unfortunately never took off as well in the US, and when it came to Europe, NEC and Hudson were ready to remove it from the market, but they'd already adapted a number of consoles for PAL territories and launched the system in a small amount of numbers. The PC Engine and TurboGrafx also had the first commercial CD-ROM attachment for the home console, which is crazy to me. And many different models and attachments were released, improving many aspects of the system later on. So as I mentioned, I was gifted the PC Engine Core Graphics Mini. The PC Engine Core Graphics was another updated model released in Japan. The shape and style, it was essentially the same form factor as the original PC Engine released in Japan, but with some color changes and also some certain fixes system-wise. Konami, who later bought out Hudson Soft, a long time ago, have now released the PC Engine Mini in Japan, and the TurboGrafx 16 Mini in the US, and the PC Engine Core Graphics Mini in Europe, which is what I have. And the PC Engine Core Graphics Mini here actually has two modes on it, PC Engine mode and TurboGrafx mode, which gives you access to a library of games from both those regions. All of the TurboGrafx games are in English, which most of the PC Engine games are in Japanese, as many of them only released in that region as things were back then. But anyway, that's enough about the system itself. I want to talk about the games and why this system has made me both super nostalgic for the past, whilst also having a level of regret that the PC Engine wasn't part of my gaming life back when it was out and when I was still a young pup, essentially. As I mentioned, that the PC Engine was essentially the child of Hudson Soft, and even back then, I wasn't a stranger to Hudson Soft. It seems as the first Bomberman game I ever played also happened to be the first Bomberman game that was released on the Game Boy, but it wasn't actually called Bomberman back then. It was called Dino Blaster. But of course I didn't know this at the time. I was only young. Or sometimes you could be even playing a company's game before you even knew who that company essentially was. And one of my favorite, albeit least talked about NES games, was Faxanadu, which was also developed by Hudson Soft. But what's made me so nostalgic and in awe of the PC Engine is its much renowned and biggest feature of its library of games, and that's its shooters or shoot 'em ups. Easily one of my favorite genres ever are shooters or shoot 'em ups. As a child of the 80s and 90s, shooters were the backbone of gaming, its heart and soul in my opinion, and everything sci-fi related had spaceships and aliens in them, and this is something many of us grew up on, along with classic fantasy dungeons and dragon type things, of course. Shooters were our virtual gateway to the stars, and they came in so many forms, and I played an absolute ton of them, back at home and especially in the arcades. But another thing I love about the PC Engine and its library of games is how it captures that 80s and 90s anime like Japan, which I also grew up on, whether it was hardcore manga Japan or more cutesy anime Japan. I was soaking it all up and loving every second. Seeing games like Star Parodia, man, this is just my jam. I'd never played this game before now, but playing it instantly reminded me of another classic shooter series I love, which is the Twinbee series, especially Pop and Twinbee on the SNES, which is all levels of nostalgia to me. You have a fantastic port of the arcade version of R-Type, and once again, I'm a long-time fan of the R-Type series, but more console-exclusive shooters like Soldier Blade and Blazing Lasers have been blowing my mind in terms of their smooth gameplay and visuals, which you have to remember, people, the PC Engine was out at the same time of the NES and crossing over into the SNES era. So this thing would have looked incredible at the time, and personally for me, I can take all that in and respect every inch of what many of these games are doing. And then you have something like Ginga Fukai Densetsu, which visually is just absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, just look at this. It just screams Akira and Blade Runner. And at first I thought these models were in full 3D, which just, would have just blew my mind. But they were just really well-drawn sprites to give the illusion of 3D, which come on, people, that's just that's just stunning. Then you have other insane games like Lords of Thunder, which has an absolutely insane soundtrack. Ninja Spirit, which is all kinds of Shadow Warriors and Shinobi, which with some really cool power-ups. Snatcher, which as we know also came to other platforms like the Mega CD, but to have it here in this collection is super welcome, even though it is in Japanese. Cho Aniki with its bizarre power-ups, which for me just screams a type of craziness that only Japan can come up with, or even RPGs like Newtopia, which clearly takes inspiration from Zelda whilst doing its own thing. Its main mascot, Bonk, had a ton of great games on the system, both from platformers to shooters, all for me having the level of 90s mascot nostalgia, which I greatly miss. Bonk is on that similar level to something like Plock to me, another game I love on the SNES. But yeah, from other more well-known IPs, I love like Ghouls and Ghosts, Splatterhouse, Castlevania, Salamander, and even a Space Harrier port, which is pretty impressive for the system. The PC Engine Mini has allowed me to sample what is now, without a doubt, a system which I sorely wish I was part of back then, but can now appreciate as an adult and delve into its library of incredible games. This is why mini consoles like this can be so important. They can help people get a feel of a system in some form of physical form. You'll get a good taste of its library and propel you back into some truly fantastic times of gaming, and I can't thank my friends enough for getting it for me. And another great thing about mini consoles like this, they try to replicate their controllers as best as they can. So, like I said, it just puts you into that system and into that time. So, was there ever a console you missed that you wished you owned, or like me, never knew you wanted it till you actually played it? Of course, let me know your thoughts. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll reply to every single one of you as always. Take care all. Peace.